now live on YouTube. Today is Thursday, April 30th. This is a meeting to check in on community outreach tasks for Backdrop CMS. Before we jump into the agenda, I'd like to go around and do some quick introductions. What's your name? Where are you from? And if you want to add something today in 30 seconds or less, a non-agenda fun life item, feel free to do that. Let's start with Luke.
All right, I am Luke McCormick. I am hunkered down here in beautiful San Ramon, California, where it's a very nice day today. And I'm excited to get more of the world involved in the magic that is Backdrop.
That's great. Sarvastri, did I say that correct?
Yeah, Sarvastri, sure, that's right.
Go ahead.
So my name is Sarvastri. I'm in Walnut Cove, North Carolina, and I'm working on this project. I'm tentatively calling it the Ultimate Beginner's Guide. And because I'm going through and learning Backdrop for the first time, and I had learned Drupal 7 sort of a little bit a while back and got sort of too involved, and I wanted to get into something that would be more appropriate for what I'm trying to do. I'm not wanting to get into Drupal 8, and I'm wanting to basically promote Backdrop as the go-to for almost all of the nonprofits and small businesses and all the kind of people that are kind of getting roped into WordPress. And to do this, I'm looking at the steps that I'm going through in creating a new website and documenting everything I'm going through step by step, and then putting together a guide based on that. So I've been working with Tim a little bit on his Ziplo site system, but I've got a lot to learn yet, and I'm just trying to get things going. I've written 2 parts of the guide already, and Tim is looking at those. And what I'm realizing is, you know, if you're building a website, you really need a list of the pages that you want, a list of the articles that you want to put in, and then you can go figure out where you're going to put all those ideas, where you're going to put all the different parts on each page. Because if you don't have a plan, then you just get stuck. And so I got stuck. So, so that's my story so far.
Well, thank you for working on that beginner's guide. That's something that's going to be really valuable to a lot of people. And I think it's hard for some of us who've gotten over that step to remember what it was like. So having you do that while you're going through it, I think is going to be produce a fantastic result.
I hope so.
Joseph, would you like to introduce yourself today?
Sure. I'm Joseph. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. I'm Jen Lampton. I'm in Oakland, California. My 30 seconds or less is that I'm very excited about eating this sandwich, which has been sitting next to me on the table for too long. I'm hoping to get there by the end of this next 2-hour meeting. It smells really good, so it's been tempting me the whole time. All right, let's see. From last time we had a community outreach meeting, we were talking about the need to put up more blog posts, and I'm happy to announce that we have done that. We both put up a post introducing our new project management committee members and our new core committer, and then we added a second post that Nate wrote up about stepping down off the project management committee, which I think is really great. Both of those things are sort of a reflection of the fact that our community is growing and we want to diversify and distribute more responsibility. So I'm really glad we've got that news out there, something we've known about for a while, but finally we're able to broadcast publicly. I'm not sure how social media has been doing. I haven't been paying a lot of attention to it. I know Tim has been doing his best to, anytime he sees anything relevant to Backdrop, he'll mention it, which is great. I noticed him retweeting some of the tweets from CMS Philly, which we'll talk about here a little later. So that's great. We are still due to send a newsletter. We still don't have access to our mailing list. I have an export from the mailing list that we got before we moved on to MailJet. So all the MailChimp stuff we have, and we can move that to another platform when ready. But all of the new people that have signed up since December are only in the MailJet system. Promising news on that front, though. We have started getting weekly updates from MailJet, which I think means that email that MailJet sends is now getting through our spam filters. So that gives me some hope that, number one, we might be able to receive a reply from their ticketing system, which we hadn't been able to do before. Or number two, we might be able to get a password reset email, which we hadn't been able to do before. So I'm hoping that we will be able to get in there to get access to our mailing list soon. So progress. On our list of things to talk about this week, Luke, you added CMS Philly. Do you want to start there?
Yeah, why don't I? So just to reiterate for anyone that knows this, or introduce it to those that don't, tomorrow is an online version of a conference that up until now, if I have this correctly, used to be called Drupaldelphia. It was a yearly Drupal camp in Philadelphia. And this year, because of COVID, obviously they've gone online. And they've broadened it out to be CMS Philly. Now, if you look at the agendas and things that are in it, it's still mostly Drupal, but I think in particular, you know, expanding it from Drupal outward, like just outside of Drupal is where we live. So since we are about the closest thing you can have to Drupal that's not actually Drupal, and so from my perspective, this was a fantastic opportunity of a conference that really specifically, without knowing it themselves, embraced us, and we should embrace them back. We should, since they opened up, they specifically looked for, so what kinds of things out there are there that you know, CMS interested, you know, people who are Drupal would be interested in, and we want to be like, yes, us. Look at all these great things we have. Look at, you know, welcome, join us. So I think we should, to the best of our abilities, inhabit CMS Philly as much as we can, and make sure that these, you know, willing recipients of our message at least get the message. And that's the thing.
That's great. Tim, I noticed you just joined. We already did introductions. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself. No.
You're muted, Tim. Oh, but
didn't have the right window open. Thanks, I'm Tim. I'm reporting here from Deerwood, Minnesota, and just checking in to see how things are going and getting ready for CMS Philly tomorrow. That's all.
That's great. So yeah, we were just talking about CMS Philly. Thank you, Luke, for the overview. So I'm just looking at the schedule too. It looks like Gregory's talk is at 10 a.m.
When is mine? I'm going to look. I don't even know yet.
Tim's talk is at 2 p.m.
Nice.
Power of layouts. Oh, dang it. I hit the wrong key.
And these are in Eastern Daylight Time, right?
Yeah, I think these are all Eastern time, Philly time. And then my talk is also at 3 p.m. 2 p.m. And what did I say? Gregory's was at 11, so 10 a.m. I thought it was
You said 10.
Gregory's 10. It's at 10. I'm looking
10,
at
2, and 3. Something I thought was really nice is when they sent an email to the presenters, they said, hey, what time zone are you in? So that I didn't have to give a 6 a.m. session, which I was very happy about. So good. Yep. Kudos to the organizers on that. It's great. So yeah, we can, Tim, I've done this before. Maybe I'll try and do it today. During a event where there's backdrop things happening, I try and schedule a tweet to go out maybe 10 minutes before it starts and say, hey, like this session's starting here. Usually I put like the room number, but in this case, I think a link is going to be even better because people who aren't at the event will be able to benefit from that. So I'll try and set those up today for those three.
You have to be registered to log in live, do you know?
I think you have to be registered to attend the Zoom.
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
like it's a $15 fee or something like that, 15 to 25. Right?
But are they streaming them as well, or do you know what their plan is? I know they've sent out a number of emails. I haven't read them.
Yeah, same here. I saw all the emails come in and said archive. Yeah, I think that's also something that I'm noting for future reference is that as a presenter, I don't want to have to read 5 emails to figure out the information that's important. I want one with everything I need and nothing else. So it might be good to note that for backdrop events, we might forget. But yeah, just kind of brain seed popped in there. Okay. Is there anything else we should talk about for CMS Philly or anything else we want to talk in general about outreach? I have one thing I saw this morning.
Yes, both.
For both. Anything for CMS Philly first?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, amplifying what I said before about how we should carpe the diem. I think, you know, since we have 3 sessions that are being given on backdrop, I think we should look for recruits. I think we should view it as, you know, pay attention to whoever shows up, and if people are asking questions, like not just like answer the question and like turn away, be like, so what's your email address? You know, let's get them in the CRM. Let's start up relationships, and you know, we're talking about retrieving our old contacts from the list, but like the fresher the contact, the better.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to see us come out of tomorrow with, you know, 5 or 10 or 15 new email addresses and people that have friends, and, you know,
Yeah.
just you know, if like something like that, if you get like 1 new contributor somehow, that's a fantastic outcome for us, right? So, and there's a potential for much more than that. So I'll do that. I will sign into the sessions tomorrow and try to do that. But let's like, I mean, let's turn to deliverable. How about at the end of the day tomorrow on Saturday, you know, sometime after? Well, how long does CMS Philly go for? How long is it? Just tomorrow?
Mm-hmm. It's just tomorrow.
Okay. So at the conclusion of it, let's see what we got. let's tag it in market, and that becomes, I mean, you know, there's the eternal set up a CRM idea, and, you know, this seems like a good core of stuff. Let's get those you know, customers and start marketing to those relationships, managing those relationships to the CRM.
I think at the very least, we can get them added to the mailing list so that when we send out a 1/6 newsletter, they'll get it. But we also might want to track where we met them, and if they have anything in particular they're interested or working on, because, you know, if you're like, oh, I have a library website, and then we meet someone else that has a library website, just putting those 2 people in connection with each other might also be really valuable. So I don't know. And one thing I'm curious about with these online events is how they're facilitating people talking to each other, because I know with the like online Zoom format, the presenter doesn't get a lot of interactivity with the audience in the same way that you do in person. Like you can say, oh, let's go out in the hall and have a conversation afterwards. Where here there isn't necessarily a hall. So sometimes it's like talk ends, you answer questions, and then who was that? Who was in the room? I don't know. How do I get access to that?
So what
Or what have you. So
I didn't attend, but what I think mid-camp did was they actually did have a hallway. They had a hallway room where it was, like an empty room where there were no sessions that you could just go to and chat with people. And yeah, I don't know how effective it was, but and I don't know if they're doing this tomorrow. So
So actually, relevant to this, are a couple things stem together. One of the other projects that I'm involved with, as Jen and perhaps others knows, is Bad Camp, and I'm in lots of meetings, and all these issues are kind of being discussed within that group quite avidly. One of the things, and this is slightly off topic, but it perhaps is when we're looking at summits. The Bad Camp group was unsure that we were going to have a backdrop summit this year at Bad Camp. Are there any plans to not have a backdrop summit at Bad Camp?
no.
All right, I will deliver that message then.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to do a backdrop summit at Bad Camp. I'm not sure I've been contacted by the summit organizer. I know
Arrange for that too.
by the training organizer, and I submitted an application to do a training, but I have not heard anything about summits.
Well, hopefully the summit organizer is better than last year's. Last year was me.
Like, who was last year's? I don't remember it being a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll make sure that's aware of things. And yeah, I remember actually. Again, this is skating far in the field, and so we can cover this later. But I'm just kind of curious, since the world has gone virtual, we may want to think about having
A virtual event.
Backdrop Con. So, since you could do it now, without actually, renting a giant auditorium and managing
Yeah.
things. You just have to somehow get the word out, which is not a trivial undertaking, but maybe it's a doable thing.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a thing to let bounce around in our heads.
Yep. I think I'm going to put that on today's agenda, and I think we should talk about it every outreach meeting and see, if it starts to materialize and turn into something we want to set a date to. I think we also have a lot to learn from online events in general. And I think that, the more we can attend, like CMS Philly, we can learn from what it is they're doing and figure out what it is that we want to do, what's going to help our community. Like, how do you have a conversation as opposed to a lecture? I think it's a fantastic idea, and I would love us to do something like that. But I think that we're going to be full of ideas after this conference. So I'd like to talk about it at our next meeting.
Yeah. All right, so that's agenda item 1 for the next outreach meeting is, what did we learn from CMS Philly?
Yep.
Good idea.
That's great. All right. Anything else we should talk about today?
So
Go ahead.
does that mean we're at the end of the agenda,
Yes.
or you're just putting it together?
No, we're at the end.
So, okay. So I just, I got here late, and I'm not sure, hopefully Sarvashri got a chance to introduce himself. I don't know if he's had a chance to talk at all. We've been talking, and I invited him to come because he's had a lot of ideas about the same kinds of stuff we've been talking about. So I don't know if any of those are relevant, or if he had anything to add today after sitting through this meeting, but or maybe he already.
I'll let him talk. I'm sure he can. But yeah, no, he actually did tell us that he was doing stuff with you and writing the beginner's guide and stuff.
I talked a little bit about the beginner's guide that I'm working on, for ultimate beginner's guide. As I'm working through putting a website together, it's a good time to do it because the people who are already experienced don't remember usually what it's like to try to get up to speed. And everybody has always talked, well, it's just a matter of slogging through it and making lots of mistakes and stumbling over yourself until finally you can manage to do something constructive. I think we can do better than that. So I wanted to give a very straightforward sort of beginner's guide to how to think about putting a website together of any sort, any kind of CMS, and the steps that you would go through. I've looked at a lot of stuff online, and I haven't seen very much that's useful. And so I've wanted to put something together that would be useful for everybody, and especially to make Backdrop stand out as a better choice than what people are doing now, running to the latest number 1 or number 2 or number 3, which don't usually work very well for a lot of people. So that's my idea.
So, yeah. Does anybody know the status? Quinn was working on the Backdrop for the humanities or whatever, wasn't she?
So she had
Jen, do you know?
book that was Drupal for the digital humanities, and she was doing it. So it's Backdrop for digital humanities. I'm not sure if she's finished that or not. But I don't think there's going to be very much overlap between that and an ultimate beginner's guide. I think that's very specific to that part of the world. And it might not start at the beginning. It might start with you're a digital humanity and you have all this information. Here's how to put it in. Right. So I don't know.
Yep, that just popped into my head, so I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, we could follow up with her. I know she's been really busy lately, but trying to do all her classes online and everything. But
okay.
So one thing that I saw today, I have a client at UC Berkeley archaeology department that has a Backdrop site. It's a guy who built his own Drupal 6 site. And when I decided he needed a new website, he's like, oh, I don't really want to worry about doing it all over. How do I get my Drupal 6 site to something newer? And so we moved him to Backdrop, and he seems so far to be pretty happy. He's pretty tech savvy. He can get in there and add new fields and change things as he needs because of his Drupal experience, previous Drupal experience, which is great. He found today an open source software tool made by CERN that is an events management program. And it comes with a call for proposals where you can enable what's essentially a module. And then it comes with the ability for people to fill out a form and the ability for someone else to review it and the ability to publish it. It comes with built-in reminders, all of this great stuff. And so he asked me to review it to see if it would run on the same server as his Backdrop site. It won't. It has very different underlying architecture. But while I was looking at it, I was very impressed by their website. So I threw one page in particular, the features page, is something we've been talking about doing on Backdrop's website, but haven't quite got together yet. I took a picture of that and threw it into our issue. But their whole website is pretty good. It's simple, much simpler than what we're doing on Backdrop. But I thought it was, as somebody who came to the site to evaluate a new piece of software, I was able to get all of the information I needed out of it really quickly. So that included the demo button on the homepage, just like we have. It included a list of top features, which was important. It included how to install it, what it required on the Getting Started page. The Getting Started page also has some information on what you should do in the demo, which I thought was interesting. And then it has other things like resources and calls to contribute and stuff like that too. So I thought we might be able to learn something from this website and how to promote open source software as we're doing now, but maybe, improved. That was my plan anyway. So I was excited by that. So it was interesting because he was like, oh, I want to put this on the same server as my Backdrop site. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, you already have a site that can do this, right? We could just add a content type or whatever. And then I'm like, oh, he probably wants something that's completely separate that he can just continue using the events over. And when you do create sort of a disposable website, you don't want to put a lot of effort into it. And so I was thinking, oh, well, if this were a distribution or a recipe or something that you could just throw on your site and then remove later for Backdrop to create an event, that's something that we could use for Backdrop Fun or Backdrop Con or whatever we want to use when we get there. And so my mind started spinning about like, oh, if he would help jumpstart some of this, that would be really great for all of the other stuff we're going to do. So yeah, I don't know. And I'm not sure if he's interested in doing it in Backdrop. He seems to really like this current tool. But I am also interested in learning about the current tool to see the kind of things that you get built in to an event management software. So that's the kinds of stuff we're going to want in our distribution or recipe or whatever it is when we do get around to making one. So
Is it called Indico?
Indico. Yeah, so it's like indigo, the color, but with a C. I don't know
Oh.
what the name means. I think it's in the about page.
I remember there used to be a Drupal distribution that was like a conferences distribution. Do you remember what that was called?
It was called COD, the Conference Organizing Distribution.
That's right. Like Badcamp back in the day when it was on it.
Yeah, we used it when it was in Drupal 6, and it was a fantastic tool that provided almost everything you needed. And when it got moved to Drupal 7, I think it was originally built for NASA. When it got moved to Drupal 7, the project maintainer changed owners, and the new maintainers were using it for a different use case than it was when it was a Drupal 6 project. And so the features that ended up getting included in the way they were managed changed to the point where it was no longer a good fit for Drupal camps. So, or Drupal cons. And so it's now, rather than being like a sort of a one-off disposable 1 year thing, which is how Drupal events tend to do it, it was something that retained all of the data year over year. And so it retained all of the users and retained all the sessions. And that makes sense if you have that kind of event where you want to be able to access previous stuff, but it didn't. There's a lot of infrastructure there to manage the different years that maybe wasn't necessary for a disposable website. So yeah, I think DrupalCon currently uses a heavily forked version of COD that is a better fit for their use case. I don't actually know what all of those differences are significantly, but I do think it is still running on base COD, but with a whole bunch of modifications. So that is
Yeah, I remember when I was at Stanford, you know, one of the things that I ran was conferences.stanford.edu. And I heavily evaluated COD at the time. And I remember both like the old version and the new version. And, you know, my conclusion was, well, like I didn't really get, you know, we ended up not actually doing anything with it, but I definitely explored that and remember that sort of shift in focus and like, you know, so yeah.
Yeah. I think we used it in Drupal 6 and loved it. And we tried it in Drupal 7 and got like halfway through and threw it out. Started over without it. It was just like, it's taking longer to build what we need around all of the infrastructure than it is to build it from scratch. Then that's a problem. Yeah, so I'm fascinated. I haven't built a Drupal event website since maybe 2014 or something, so 6 years. Drupal events are really different now than they were back then. I'm curious to see like the other software, what it's doing, and then hopefully when we get back around to doing Backdrop Con, we'll be able to take all of this growth of information that's happened and make something that could be reusable for people who wanted to do local events. That's my goal.
Yeah, well, I'm on the Badcamp website committee, so I'm like, you know, dealing with that actual, you know, the Drupal 8 version of the thing at the moment.
I think they did it in Drupal 8 last year too.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they used COD or anything.
No, it's definitely not COD.
Okay.
I mean, it's homegrown.
Anything else related to outreach you guys want to talk about today?
What's the issue that you said you put the screenshot in?
Oh, sorry. I threw a link. Did I throw a link? I
Yep.
meant to throw a link. And so
CMS 129.
issue 129, the most recent comment has a screenshot of the features page, but I think it also links to the site and you can click around the site. You want to see the other pages. It's obviously a much simpler site than Backdrops, but I thought the general selling of the product was compelling.
But Jen, I went to the, well, you did, I don't think you did include a link to the actual site. So I found it and I'm confused because I can't find that menu item. It looks different than your screenshot.
The link is the
I'm
text.
at Indico.
Put it here. The put it here text links to the website, which is getindico.io.
Oh.
Maybe I should put that not in the text link, but actually as the URL.
Oh, I thought I clicked on that and it took me somewhere else. Okay, I'm sorry there. You're right.
Yeah.
But it's, okay, so there's indico.io and there's getindico.io.
Yeah,
They're different. Oh, okay.
I don't think I saw the Indico site. I
Yeah,
did
and
another one,
and
another
that's
one
also. Mhm.
that
Okay,
was not as compelling.
thank you.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right, well, it is 12:45. We have 15 minutes until our developer meeting starts. If no one has anything else to add, I have a plan for my next 15 minutes.
Okay, me too.
All right. Anyone who wants to join the developer meeting, we will see in 15 minutes. Thanks everyone for
Okay.
joining.
Bye.